a lot of times we have perceptions that conditioning had to be a punishment. And only until like 5 or 6 years ago, I was introduced to the idea that, wait, I can actually just do this for fun. For some reason, I've thought that fun meant no results. What's funny is when you really start chasing for fun, you start to see an entirely different outcome. One that's not forced. One is just, it's just kind of happening. And when should I celebrate small wins?
If you're stuck in a spot where you feel like you're not getting any wins, go back and think about some of the things that you have done.
I've noticed the biggest wins oftentimes is not the 100-pound weight loss. And they'll tell you, like we've done a few of these inspiration stories, and I'll tell you their 100-pound weight loss was actually, ironically, they're the saddest there. Why do you think that is?
So, Taylor, I hope it's okay. I'm going to tell this story. If not, too late.
Could losing weight actually be fun? Most people think it's about counting calories, do exhausting workouts, saying no to every single party in the world. But what if it's not true? What if you can actually have fun and lose weight at the same time? In today's episode, I got Coach Madison with me. We are sharing a framework we use for ourselves, but also our clients to ensure that weight loss can actually be fun. You ready?
Yeah.
I'm getting better at that.
You're getting better at that.
Yeah. What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You having fun?
I'm having so much fun.
Okay, so let's do this. So let's share this fun framework. And again, I like acronyms because it allows me to kind of remember them, right? So FUN. So we have 3 things. What is the first one for the framework, Madison?
It is finding what you enjoy.
And that's what the F stands for.
Yes. F is for find. Find what you enjoy.
Love it. Okay.
Yes.
Let's ask the first question. Why is this important?
Yep. Why?
Yeah.
You go first.
Why
is
is
it
this important? I think this is extremely important because I think a lot of times we have perceptions that fitness has to be so destructive. At least for me, it has. In my first 18 years in learning strength and conditioning, that conditioning had to be a punishment.
Yeah.
And only until like 5 or 6 years ago, I was introduced to the idea that, wait, I can actually just do this for fun. And for some reason, I've thought that fun meant no results. And I think a lot of our athletes perceive that as well, because I was one of those athletes in high school, in college, in a lot of these sports. And what's funny is when you really start chasing for fun, you start to see an entirely different outcome. One that's not forced. One is just like, it's just kind of happening, which is way more exciting. So that's why I think start with fun and really just defining that it could be a possibility is really important.
So how are some ways that you would do that?
So for me, I'll do an example for me, but
Okay.
I'll also do an example more pragmatic when I'm training clients. So one that I do for me is I do this on my reflection. How can I make this 1% more joyful, right? Or how can I make this 1% less friction? And I do that across everything that I do, including this podcast. It's why all of the preparation that you see, I don't think we did any preparation when we first did this.
No.
We were like, what are we talking about today? But now we have like lists and it's a week in advance. And I've even got to a point where I was like, I'm not even going to do a text thread between me and you saying like, when are you available? And then that was like so much friction. Now I just send you a calendar. Like, can you do any of these?
Yeah.
So part of fun for me also means less friction. Like if it's too hard to do, it's not that fun for me. It has to seamlessly flow. So on a weekly cadence, I'm asking myself, is this fun? And if it's not fun, how can it be fun? Right? So like, what are some things that I can add? What are some things that I can remove? Or what are some things that I can prepare for? And then I just change that one thing and then I constantly refine. So that's what I do for myself.
Okay.
For my clients, it's a little bit more subtle. I'll throw a workout that has 10 movements or 5 movements. And then I'm like, man, like, what was the hardest part? Right. And I'll write a mental note down. Sometimes I'll physically write it down. And then I'll ask them, what was your favorite part? And they'll say random things. You know, everyone's a little bit different. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I'm just glad that I'm done. right? And I'm like, ah, I lost it. That's a loss for me. Or they're like, oh, I love lifting weights. And I'm like, double stars. I'll put a star on that because the next session I'll add more weights. Or they'll
Mhm.
say, I really like doing bands. I was like, oh, I love actually jumping, or I love power cleans. And I'll take notes down and I'll pepper those in even more. Right. And I constantly do this over the course of 12 weeks until it gets to a point where that week is perfect for them, that they can't wait for it. That's the idea for me, is like, once they start having the conversation of like, can I add another day? Or they're just like, I feel like something's missing
Mhm.
when I'm not here, when I'm not working out. That means I'm designing something that's really pulling them, and I'm not forcing anything. And that requires weekly like tricks and questions. I mean, you could probably just ask him, what are your favorite parts? But it doesn't feel authentic. You got to
Yeah.
trick it in.
Yeah.
So, you want to add to that?
When it comes to finding something that works for you, I know that we were just talking about kind of the how, but going into like back into the why a little bit. There are people that come to the gym to work out and then they realize that it's not what they want. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's miserable coming in
Yeah.
and just lifting weights and throwing things around. Um, and so they think that working out isn't for them. And I feel like that's a hard spot to be stuck in because we were made to move. Like the human species, we're made to move. We're not made to sit
Mm-hmm.
still and do nothing. And so I think being able to find something that you enjoy doing, like for anybody that sits there and goes, it's just like you have to go work out at the gym. It's like, no, you can do yoga. You can go for
Mm-hmm.
walks. You can go for runs. You can dance.
Yeah.
You can do pole dancing. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
a workout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there's so many different things that you can do. Like there's aerial acrobatics that you can do. And people are so stuck on having to go to a gym. So that's why for me, when it comes like finding what you enjoy doing, that's the why. Because people are so stuck on thinking there's only one way to work out
Yeah.
when there's so not anymore. There's so many different things that you can do
There's
to
too
really
many.
enjoy what you're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add that in because I think that that's
Yeah. Why do you think? Yeah. I think one of the big perceptions is there's only one type.
yeah.
And I'd also want to add that they don't experiment enough.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they don't enjoy it because they suck at it, which is like a huge disservice because not a lot of people really enjoy doing things that they're really bad at.
Yeah.
So you got to give yourself an opportunity to be taught. One, I think having someone teach you the movements,
Mm-hmm.
because it's very cool when like one of the most hated movements that we teach in CrossFit is the snatch,
Yeah.
but it's also one of the most favorite movements. And you wonder why. And you're like, oh, the person hates it because they suck at it. But
Yeah.
then a person's really good at it, they love it. Isn't that ironic? So like give yourself an opportunity to learn it, and then truly explore it. Give yourself some time,
Yeah.
and then just see what happens. You have to give yourself an opportunity to at least explore that if there's a possibility that there is a fitness regimen that's for me, that's uniquely for me. It might not even be movement type. For you, it was like it just needs to be with people.
Yeah.
What's ironic, we're both opposite. I'm actually I love working out by myself, like in the dark, and I'm only doing burpees. Like yesterday, I turned all the lights off and I just worked out. I just did 1,000 burpees in the dark. And people would be like, he's a serial killer for
yeah.
that. I actually truly enjoyed that. And I mean, if you ask me deeply more, I just like knowing that no one else is doing it.
Yeah.
And it like separates me from my old me. Like and there's probably some psychological issues with like my dad or my mom's like, I want to be seen. And the only way you can be seen is if you're different.
Yeah.
So there's that moments for me. But for you, you've realized that you like to work out with people.
Yeah. I'm a group person. So we
Mm-hmm.
were just having this conversation
Mm-hmm.
about um creating workouts that you can enjoy.
Yeah.
And I came to the realization that the workouts that we do in this gym, I don't really enjoy doing,
Yeah.
but I enjoy the people that I get to do it with. Like I
Right.
enjoy suffering together and getting out of
Mm-hmm.
something together as a group. So like if I go to a class and no one else is there, I want the coach to do it with me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I'm not doing this by myself.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely do I do a workout. I'm like, "Ah, I'm so glad I did that on my own." So that for me was kind of a realization. So we're like, how can I make workouts fun? I'm like, I didn't know workouts were supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
I just thought you were supposed to enjoy it with the people that you were with.
Yeah.
So it's cool to be able to have this conversation and understand like you can actually enjoy doing the things that you want to do. And to kind of go off what you said, because earlier you said you like to go kind of like the path of least resistance, like where there's the least amount of friction.
Hmm.
But with what you just said, I do think that it's probably safe to say you need to maybe have a little friction in the beginning
Yeah, for
if
sure.
as you're learning to
Yeah.
do something new
Hmm.
before you can decide whether you want, because you're not going to, well, I'm not going to say never, but more likely than not, you're not going to try something new and love it right away. Like it's going to take some, like you might have like a connection to it. If you're someone that enjoys dancing, but you've never taken a dancing class and you go to dancing class and you think, I mean, this was fun, but give it a few more tries. Allow there to be a little friction before you can start to really say whether it's something you do or don't want to do.
Right. Yeah.
So give it some time.
That's a definitely like a later stage for sure too.
Yeah.
Because there's a one limiting belief that for me to get into the best shape of my life, I have to work really hard. And that's a really limiting belief for me. So that's the added layer of I added friction because actually fitness can actually be easy. And I'm telling myself this all the time. And for it to be easy, sometimes it's not the movement. Sometimes it's the time domain.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's the amount of warm up that's required. Right. All of those things I put into that because if it's taking too much of my time, I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get anxious and I'm overwhelmed and so on and so forth.
Well, I think too, it goes along with the mental game.
Hmm.
If you tell yourself something's going to be hard, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
But if you tell yourself that you're going to enjoy it and you're going to have fun going through it, chances are you'll enjoy it more and you'll have more fun going through it.
Yes.
And so that to me is another aspect that people will assume if I work out, it needs to be hard. Like I need to go hard. It's going to suck.
Hmm.
I'm going to get down and dirty and we're going to like, I'm going to be, when I'm done, I'm going to be sweaty and gross and it's going to like be awful. And
Yeah.
like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. If you tell yourself it's going to suck, then it's going to suck. I go home to Taylor and I will like Taylor be like, how was the workout today? I'm like, God, it sucked. It was hard. And he looked at me and goes, then why do you keep doing it? And I was like,
Yeah.
you got a point. He goes, if it
Yeah.
really sucked and you really didn't like it, why would you keep going back?
Hmm.
Like you have a point. So I do. I enjoy the workouts. I enjoy the people that I do it with. But
Yeah.
when you tell yourself it's going to be hard, it's going to
becomes
be
hard, yeah.
hard. And it's going to be more hard than it probably needs to be.
Yeah. Really quick personal question. When you see me on my headphones and I'm doing something dumb,
Yeah.
like super hard, what are your perceptions that am I saying in my head? This is just a test.
To be honest, I
Yeah.
don't think that you're telling yourself anything.
Oh, really?
Like if your headphones are on, I'm assuming you're
Yeah.
listening to something and you're just zoned out and you're not
Yeah,
really
yeah.
talking to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just listening to a good podcast.
Yeah.
Right. What's interesting, I had a conversation with one of my clients. It's like, how do you do it? Like go hard like that every single day? And it's a huge misperception. I actually make it less hard. It's why I'm doing it every single day. And I'm actually truly enjoying it. That's the big thing. And the other side is they think I'm working out like redlining level. And out of the 30 days, I probably redline one or twice a month. Very rare. So like I'm actually going like 70% of my speed, which blows people away because they're just like, how are like you're killing everyone. And I think that's also where the theory is. That's why I think some of the best wrestlers in the world are not here. They're in like Russia. And one of their philosophies are play, right? And they just play. They just go into practice. But then you can make world records in both ways. Americans are different. They're like, let's just go until our nose bleeds. And then you'll win gold medals. But I'm more in the camp of like, it feels like play for me. And when it feels like play for
I
me,
love that.
they come in regularly. Imagine someone training 365 days as opposed to someone that's only training 100. Who's going to get fitter over time?
Yeah.
Right. And the perception is a lot of times is they think I'm really, really training hard, but I'm actually just playing. It's my favorite time of the day. And I'm like, awesome. How can I make this more fun? I'm going to listen to a podcast. Right. I want to share an embarrassing story real quick. Because I'll do mile runs outside with the vest on.
Yeah.
And I'll put my headphones on. And then they think I'm like listening to like Tech Nine, hardcore music. But I actually listen to Boys to Men and sometimes Whitney Houston. So I'm running to this like side. And I don't know if you ever heard the song End of the Road. There's like Boys to Men.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's like an a cappella part where they're like kind of harmonizing.
Yeah.
And I'm running. And if you run there enough times, there's a lot of solar panel guys that are
Mhm.
walking around, selling their solar panels. And I thought it was safe. I was like, no one's here. I'm going to go for it. Karaoke mode. So I'm singing super hard, and then they just pass through. And then they're like, they were they were super happy though. But again, for me, when I have a perception of someone running with a vest, I'm like, man, they're getting after it really hard.
Yeah.
But I was actually just listening to my song,
Mhm.
right? End of the road. And it was perfect. So like we can, we have our own like songs that are playing when we're watching people work out. But what if they're just listening to Whitney Houston the whole time
Yeah.
and singing a song while they're actually getting fit? Like we never considered that. That's actually what I'm doing. I'm never listening to music. I'm listening to things that I really truly enjoy. And oftentimes it's a podcast. Like, what are you listening to? I was like, it's never music because we listen to music all the time.
Yeah.
You get tired of it.
Same.
So I'm actually just like, okay, how do I make it's just been refined. And a byproduct is I'm doing reps in the process. So you can make it fun by the people that you're surrounded with.
Mhm.
You could make it fun by the particular movements that you truly enjoy and love and maybe you're good at. But also you can also probably make it fun of the type of people it attracts.
Yeah.
Because CrossFit people are way different than yoga people for me.
Yeah.
So I actually enjoy the CrossFit people, primarily because I think there's a suffering element to it,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And I like the suffering. And I also like the peace too, don't get me wrong. But so there's like a lot of stuff that's wired in you to really figure that out.
Yeah.
You want to add to that?
No, I think that was a good
That was a good
a
good
good
amount.
F. A good F
Okay.
for our finding.
Okay, cool. So the first one was find what you enjoy.
Yes.
That's framework number 1. So framework number 2 is utilize small wins. Why is this important?
Okay, so again, we were just kind of having this conversation. Small wins are building blocks to big wins. But if
Mhm.
you don't look at the small wins, I don't think you'll ever truly notice the big wins.
Okay.
Small wins are something like, let's say that your big goal is to lose 50 pounds, right? But as you're working with your trainer and you're going through and you're doing your workouts, all of a sudden you go from being able to bench press 35 pounds to being able to bench press 85 pounds, right? I mean, some people say it's a big win. Some people say it's a small win.
Yeah.
It just kind of depends. Because if your big win is losing the weight, being able to bench press 50 pounds more might be a small win for you. So it's finding the things along the way that are wins in different aspects of maybe where your mind is centered towards, if that makes sense. So like a small win could be like, let's say that you're working with someone with nutrition and they come in and for 1 week they journal all their food and you had said like, hey, we're just going to try it for 1 week. We're going to see if you're able to do it. They bring it in.
Yeah.
Huge win. Right? In a sense of like, you did it for 1 week. Maybe your food wasn't fantastic. Maybe you didn't count your calories perfectly, but you wrote down what you were going to eat. And that's something that you've never done before. There's a win. So it's not just the whole, I've lost 50 pounds. It's what did you do in between where you are now and when you lost the weight that you wanted to lose to get you there.
Exactly.
Like the things that you were able to do that maybe you didn't notice as being a win, but were actually wins because you created a new version of yourself every time you did it. And so now this new version of yourself is building on itself throughout time.
So good. Yes. Lots of things here for me. And I agree with a lot of what you said. When you focus on the gap, on what's missing, you get more of it. But then when you focus on the gain, you start to gain way more of that. And it's really hard because we're so wired to focus on what's missing. And part of understanding wins is you have to first be okay that you're like, I want more. Like that's a normal part of you. And like trying to suppress that, I think, can also result in no wins at all. right? So that's like a big thing. I've noticed the biggest wins oftentimes is not the 100-pound weight loss. And they'll tell you. Like we've done a few of these inspiration stories, and I'll tell you their 100-pound weight loss was actually, ironically, they're the saddest there. Why do you think that is? First off, why do you think they're saddest there?
So, um, Taylor, I hope it's okay. I'm going to tell this story. If not, too late. So, one thing that I remember from Taylor was when he was playing baseball, he got to the World Series and he was on the team when they won the World Series.
Right.
And after they won, he
Yeah.
was like, now what? Like, you assume it's going to be this huge peak of awesomeness and something amazing is going to happen when this one thing happens to you. But then it happens and then you go, now what? Like, I thought my whole life was up to this point, but now I have the rest of my life to live. So then it kind of is like this de-escalating, almost depressive state of, I wanted to get to this point. I got here, but what do I do now? And so I think that that's a big part of if someone wants to lose 100 pounds. I mean, we know people that have lost 100 pounds in a few months.
Yeah.
And they think that that was their main goal. And then they get there and they're like, oh, shit.
What do I do?
Yeah, this is not what I was expecting it to be. Like, I thought I was going to feel a certain way and act a certain way and be a certain way. Like, this whole world was supposed to change around me, but I don't feel any of that.
Yeah.
And so you put all of your like love and trust into this one goal, and then you reach it and you realize it's not what you thought it was going to be.
Right.
And so, and then a lot of people, when they do that, will have the yo-yo effect where they'll gain all the weight back even more. And I think a lot of it is honestly a depressive state of I was expecting something and my expectations were let down.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't what I thought it would be.
They were just delaying the wins. This is why you see a lot of Hollywood stars make it all the way to the top and then they're done. They're out.
Yeah.
Right? They just leave the world, or they go into drugs and then they leave the world in that form as well. We see this in weight loss all the time too. They're delaying the accomplishments. They're delaying the wins. And it's very easy to do that because I've done that plenty of times. Financially, I've done that where I'm like, if I make this money, I'm going to be so happy. And I'm like, no, it's never been like that.
God, you always think it. You always think that if you make a certain amount of money, you're going to be happy.
Yeah. And, I had to separate success and happiness. You can get really successful when you delay that, though, right?
Yeah.
You'll get to the 100-pound weight loss. Now, I don't want to discount it, but if you want to do weight loss in a way where it's sustainable, you're constantly fit. And I think I've somewhat unlocked that by doing these things. Like I'm utilizing wins. The interesting about my win formula is I feel winning when there is something to chase, something small. Something different. And it doesn't have to be, and that's why I always have to do something really hard, right? Because when you get to a spot where you're kind of fit already, you chase the next level.
Yeah.
And then eventually it gets so large that you're like, who is this guy? That's why my next win is that 1,000. I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. If I could just do that for 3 days in a row, it's a major win for me because I've done it twice in a row.
Hey, remember when you thought that about Murph?
Yeah. Yeah, so I just knowing that, oh man, my body can do this. My body can do that. And I'm celebrating those mini wins over and over and over again. I even celebrate the wins when I lose. Let me explain. Like when I hurt myself, I learn a new movement. I'm like, dude, oh, it's probably because I don't do enough of this. Yeah. Oh, wait, I haven't done any mobility, or I haven't seen Corey for 2 weeks. Like those are wins for me too. Because I also know how my body will respond. So I think a lot of times people think that winning is always a good thing. Like it always feels good. Winning can also be a learning moment.
Yeah.
I actually like learning more than winning. Ironically. I might just be weird like that. like when I was editing for 8 hours, I was the happiest I've ever been. And then there was like 30 views after the video. And I was like, how come I'm still pretty happy? It's because I learned X, Y, and Z skills. So now I'm wired to just like, how many times can I learn? Learning feels great.
I think that then learning is winning to you. That's what it is.
Massive.
Yeah. Every time you learn something, you win.
Yeah. So that is like a big component on essentially how to do it.
And
right?
I think
So,
that people don't always understand that wins are wins. And I think that I'm in that space too, in a sense of when I do something small, I think to myself, that was really cool, but is it really necessary to
mhm,
like celebrate that? And then you
right.
kind of move away from it instead of being like, if I think that thought, why don't I celebrate it? Even if it's 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like give yourself some time to feel good about the fact that you did something that you either couldn't do before or that you were able to learn and grow from.
Yeah.
Like even if it's 10 seconds. I mean, that's Tara texted me a couple weeks ago because I mean it happened. She
Oh,
was so excited and she goes, Royce did not get excited enough for me. I need you to get excited for me. I was like, I got it.
yeah.
I'm on it. And we got
Yeah.
really excited about it.
And you want to do it more because now you
Yeah.
have this social connection. Yeah, my wife is doing she read this book called Tiny Habits, and one of the things she shared was if you're not celebrating even like the most stressful thing. So one for me is payroll and rent. So every time I do payroll and rent, I get super stressed out
Yeah.
because it feels like I'm losing. And one of the benefits of that or the things that they recommended was to celebrate even doing it. So
The
I was
things
like,
that suck that you do
yeah,
and finish.
and you actually start to rewire. Like you have to create I send her a dance emoji. I was like, I paid Madison today, right? I was able to pay rent today, and she and I. It's really weird. I've been doing it for the past, but now I actually look forward to it.
Mhm.
And then there's this energy behind it. You could take things that are actually very stressful, and you start to look forward to it, right? I think a lot of times a lot of people don't want to celebrate those because it's painful and it's a recipe for not doing it again.
Yeah.
So, and I see that in weight loss all the time. It's all temporary for them. Temporary pain, and then I get this massive results. But that's like a really easy recipe to just relapse.
Yeah.
Or or it never works out because you're just in too much pain and there's no fun out of it,
Mhm.
right? So when should I do this? When should I celebrate small wins?
Well, whenever you have one. I mean, but I would also say if you're stuck in a spot where you feel like you're not getting any wins,
Mm-hmm.
go back and think about some of the things that you have done, like some of those small wins. I
Like, oh,
mean,
reflect back.
yeah, reflect back to, okay, if I feel like I'm not getting wins right now, let's look at this past week. And even if my wins are like 2 weeks ago, I was really sick. And I finally got into the gym and I did a workout. I modified everything, but I did a workout. And by the end of the week, I'm like, oh my God, I only did one workout this week. I'm like, but you know what? I did one workout. I felt like crap and I did it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to move and it helped me feel better. And so
Mm-hmm.
it gives you the reflection of almost being able to turn something that you deemed as being a negative into a positive. And
Mm-hmm.
now it becomes a win instead of being something that tears you down.
Yeah,
But I had to like force myself to think about that because I was in such a frustrated place for myself. And I was like, no, I
yeah,
did it though. Like I did a workout
yeah,
and a week that I didn't think I was going to work out even once.
exactly.
And so I think for me, that's when they would be really strongly utilized is if you can go back and reflect when you're in a time where you feel like you're not getting any wins. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. So what are some things that you actually did win on, even if it wasn't the bright, shiny stars? Might have
Right.
been a learning experience or an experience that you went through that in the moment sucked, but you can look back now and say, I grew from that.
Yeah, I love it. I do it every day, and I do it because I think I focus on way too many losses that I had to like completely create this balance. So I do 3 wins a day for me, and at first it feels really weird. You're like just trying to get wins and you're just like, I got coffee today. That was like your first win. It eventually just starts to evolve. You start to see wins in areas where you've never expected before. And it gets really cool when you start, like I said, experiencing wins in the losses.
Yeah.
I train a client that works on gaming, and gaming is very addicting, right? And one of their principles in the research and development side is they want to make sure that winning feels great, but losing feel even better.
Interesting.
And if you can do that, you got a game that is extremely, extremely addicting. And I'm a big gamer, if you guys probably have knows. I play a lot of RPGs, first person shooters, ranking systems. And when you look at some of these games, when you lose, it's like cool. Like for instance, Battle Royale. If you don't know what that, do you know what that is,
I do
Madison?
not know about
There's
rail
like
is.
there's
Teach
50
me.
people. There's 50 people that go in the game, and you have to survive.
Oh
You're the
god.
last person,
Oh, so
right?
it's like that
It's like
movie.
Fortnite, but then I don't know. It's like there's a lot of games like that.
Yeah.
I love that game. Anyways, why I love it, okay? One, there's something called matchmaking. Matchmaking means you're going to be playing with people that are your skill. Because if you go in there hot with a bunch of pros, you fly in and you just get clapped. You're like, "Oh my gosh, you're alive for a second."
Yeah.
But if everyone else is in there and you can see them, they're like looking at the sky, looking at the ground, they're shooting everywhere. And you're like, "Oh, I can kill this guy." And then you get that one kill. And then eventually you start to change your ranking over time. And so you're getting all of these easy wins. In fact, I'd almost when you're going into those games, 80% of the time you're winning. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make in their weight loss journey. Their first 7 days, they haven't experienced one win. This is why I say like you got to get 7 wins in 7 days, or you ain't gonna re-sign your clients.
Yeah.
You're like, how do I do that? Oh, there's a lot of different ways. So for my clients, I'm like, when was the last time you worked out 3 days in a row? And they're like 7 years ago. Oh my gosh. What would happen if you did this in like 6 weeks back to back? They're like, oh my gosh, I'd be a different person. Right? So that's a win. Or they come in, it's like, dude, I was super hungover. I'm coming in today. It's like, when was the last time you were hungover and you came in? They were like, oh my gosh, never. Dude, do you see? Like you can create so many wins. It's insane.
Yeah.
Right? When was the last time you pulled yourself up on a barbell? And they're like, yeah, but it's only a black band. But when was the last time? And then they that's another win. And you start stacking these tiny wins, and over time, they just feel like they're winning, right? So it's like you have to position they're experiencing like they're winning every single time. And sometimes they don't know how that game is like. You have to position it in a way that it's like that.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, I think you should do it every day. There was one like sermon podcast. The title was like One Day When. One day when I do this,
Yeah.
I'm going to be able to do a pull up in a marathon. One day when I do this, I'm going to be able to ask this woman out or like start this business. One day when they're delaying it. One day when I get to the World Series, I'm going to feel like X, Y, and Z. And he shifted the word to one day wins. And when you do that, the journey is so much more fruitful. And it gets really exciting. So change it from one day when to one day wins.
Ooh, that's a good little note
a
there.
Yeah.
I like that.
I didn't do that. Stephen Furtick. Okay.
It's okay. You can still use it.
I know, it's such a great one. I still remember it. Okay. Where are we at?
We
did the why, how, when.
Yep, for utilize.
Okay. Let's go into the last one.
What we got?
The last one is
nurture positive habits. This is a big one.
Okay. So nurture positive habits. This is one of the most important pieces because I think we fixate too much on the goals. And in a nutshell, if you want to achieve your goals, you just have to nurture the right habits. Goals don't happen on its own. And the other side is goals are sometimes you can't control. Things can happen that are outside your control.
Yeah.
So a recipe for madness and serious depression is constantly trying to control things you can't control.
Yeah.
Things that you can control is your behaviors and your habits. So when you start fixating, you just park it. I think goals are amazing to create kind of like
they give you like an ending of what you can build off of.
Yeah, it gives you some sort of direction.
Yeah.
Right? So I think that's great, but once you have that direction set, park it, and then you should hyperfixate on the habits, hyperfixate on the behaviors. And when you can do that, you can experience what we were talking about. You can make it fun, right? You like a sense of fun for me is a little bit of control. Like we're all control freaks in some way. Anxiety is an element to that.
Yeah.
That's why we're anxious because we're trying to.
What that's like.
Yeah, Madison is like constantly trying to control everything. But when you can really understand where you can actually have control, you actually have fun with it. I stopped trying to control things that are. I don't coach anyone outside of this room.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing that I do. One of my clients will talk about other people all the time, and I'm like, that's great. Let's focus on you. I can't control that person.
Yeah.
I want to talk about you. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Right? Like I used to try to. You can't.
No.
You can't coach someone that's not inside this room.
No.
Right? So that's like gossiping at a
Mm-hmm.
high level. Right? So uh so the first thing is just to make sure, like, understand the goal, and then you have to almost look at it, reverse engineer it, and then ask yourself, what are the habits that can lead to that goal? So let's talk about weight loss real quick, because this is a weight loss thing. Can weight loss
Mm-hmm.
make me more happy? What are some of those habits that a person can nurture?
So I would say, I mean, it can, if we're looking at kind of basics, but like habits in your nutrition. So it can be, what are you eating? How much are you eating? When are you eating? It can be working out. So, like, how much are you working out? How active are you? Steps that you're getting in. Are you moving enough during the day? If it's like sleep wise, you're getting like 5 hours sleep a night. So, what kind of habit can we create to get you to bed earlier, slash get you like on a schedule so you're going to bed and waking up at around the same time?
Right.
These are all, I think, kind of mini habits of things that you can start to build on to get someone to that goal of weight loss.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that I've just noticed, when you're creating habits, you almost want to position it also in a way where it's so easy that they can do it.
Yes.
Right? So it's like out of 9 out of 10, 90% of the time you think you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can, this is for like initial stages,
Yep.
weight loss.
Yep.
It should be a 9 out of 10. If it's a 5 out of 10, it's too hard.
Like they should look at you and be like, wait, really? That's
Really?
it?
100%.
Yeah.
One of the examples was, he was like, should I just do 75 hard right off the bat? I was telling you a client about that.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, 75 hard is great. But let's just talk about your cheese stick that you were talking about.
Yeah.
He's like, here's the homework that I want you to write down. After you eat that cheese stick, I want you to write down, we'll play the five game. We call it the 5 game. Touch, taste, smell, hear. I'm missing one more. Sound.
Yeah.
Right?
That's here. Touch,
Oh.
taste, smell. Touch, taste, smell, see.
See.
And
Hear.
Yes. Touch, taste, smell, see, and hear.
Okay.
Got it.
And yeah, so she had to write that down. And she was like, what's the whole purpose of that game? Just do it. Right? So what she learned was that she actually ate things when she just wanted to be distracted or when she was bored.
Mm-hmm.
But then she was like, oh, wait, I'm not even conscious when I'm eating. So the win was that. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a major revelation. I didn't tell her, right, that's what she was going to experience. Like, what did you notice? She's like, I notice I only eat things when at this time frame, I'm not even aware. When I wrote all of these things down, I wasn't even hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just eating just to escape something. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, you just experienced something that I've been trying to teach people for the past 10 years. And you did it in one session.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? It's like, that's huge. Like, high five. Let's talk about step 2.
Yeah.
Right. So now that we know that it's boredom, what are things that you're not bored about? And they're like, oh, I love history books. I love these things. I was like, what if we just like listen to a podcast around history? What would that day look like for you? I was like, oh my gosh, I'd be geeking out. He's like, and if you want to eat the cookie, you can. But oftentimes they don't even care.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they're just like, the habit that we were trying to nurture there was just awareness. Right. Just being present in like the emotional eating side of things.
Yeah.
So like, it's important when you're nurturing your habit that it's a 9 out of 10 initially. Until you get to hardcore, then you can be like, okay, you can dance around a little bit.
I won't even say that by the time you get to hardcore, it might be more difficult than the habits you started off with, but because you've been stacking them over time, it's not going to be as hard as you think it is. Like if I told you, like if we went into something and you wanted to fix your nutrition and I said, cool, so that means that you can only have this many carbs, this many fats, this much protein, And then on top of that, you can only have 3 meals a day, no snacking between, go.
Mhm.
Versus being like, okay, cool, this week we're going to look at just your carbs. Everything else can stay the same. But we're going
Mhm.
to look at your carbs, how much you're eating, and we're going to focus on that. Can you write down how many
Mhm.
palms or whatever of carbs that you eat this week?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, yeah, that's fine. That's easy. Like, great. And then you build on it. And then eventually you get to the point where you have all of this laid out, but you've done it in a way where you start small and build on it. So even
Mhm.
when you get to what's quote unquote hard, it's not hard by the time you get there because everything
Yeah.
else is just habit. Like, you've just done it.
Exactly.
So it's just one more thing that you are just adding on to it.
Yes. And you just have to revolve that. I like habits because you can do a lot of things with it. You can nurture it to refine it. You can remove things, right? You can also reduce things if you needed to, right? So like there's so much control, there's so much nuances in what you can do with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where it becomes fun for me. There's still so much. I think when I'm talking about fun, it means control to me.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you can create and just like do just if you just focus on habits. When you focus so much on just solely the results, the fun gets just destroyed.
Yeah.
And I did it so many times, even just in this podcast. I was like, let's go look at just views, right? But then it's like, I don't have control over that.
Mm-hmm.
I have control on the people I want to do a podcast with. I have control of what time out of the day. You're like, no, Madison, I'm not doing it at 3 p.m. That doesn't seem fun to me.
You had it on
And
your schedule.
I did, but then I was like, I've
And
never,
delete.
yeah. But then I can change the constraints a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So those are the things that, and I think it's growing because I'm actually enjoying it. And that was our theory with Keith and I had a conversation. I was like, why do you think? Is it the topic, or could it be something a little bit more subtle that we don't even realize? Can they see that I'm actually having fun? And if like that's if you look at some of the best podcasts you listen to, it's sometimes it's not the information. It's
No.
just like these guys seem cool.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's why I think like Joe Rogan does so well.
yeah, I just want to hang out with those dudes.
Yeah, you just want to hang out with him,
Mhm.
and he's a master question asker. Like, he's
Yeah.
so interested in everything and everyone that comes on his podcast that you want to sit just so you can listen to the questions he asks
Mm-hmm.
and see what the person says.
Yeah.
There's a lot of power to that. I mean, it's energy. People are drawn into like high vibration energy, and those
100%.
people that are really good at doing podcasts can literally push it through the screen or push it through the speaker where you can feel it.
Yeah. And
There's a
he probably
change.
care less if there's 25
Oh,
million
doesn't
views.
care. Yeah, for sure.
Like I guarantee one of his frameworks was like, do I want to talk to that person?
Yeah.
Do I have 20 plus questions for that person? Right? That's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's coming from that state, and that's a theory of mine, I'm fascinated by it. He's like, if he's interested in that, maybe I should be interested. One thing about Joe Rogan's podcast, if you watch it, it's a 3-hour one, but it becomes a 10-hour one because there's side things that you don't even know about.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what the heck is that? Let me research it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like it becomes this experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really when it comes down to creating something fun is really just like creating a fine-tuned experience of what you want to see.
Yep.
So like that is like the biggest thing for me. Okay, final question.
Mm-hmm.
You're ready for this because we've been doing it every single time.
Yeah.
What is the best question you just recently received or possibly in your lifetime that completely changed your life?
So we chatted a little bit about this before. And one thing, when I read that question, I thought to myself, like, that's damn near impossible for me to be able to get there because I have my husband, I have you, I have Nick, I have Tara, I have James, these people in my life that ask me the best questions ever all the time. So I'm like, how am I supposed to pick one? And so last night I kind of journaled about it. And it's not necessarily what I would say is the best question I've ever been asked.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that you've asked me this, and I'm sure every other person I just named has asked me this at some point. But it's one that I perceive to be very important to me right now because of the spot that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like, what do I want to do with my life? Like, what is my why for this lifetime that I'm in?
Mm-hmm.
And the more I think about it, it's a hard perspective to be in because I'm starting to realize I think the majority of people have no idea what they want.
Mhm.
Like they're stuck in a space of I'm doing this thing because like this is what I'm supposed to wake up in the morning and I go to this job and I do this job and I come home and I have dinner and I go to bed.
Right.
And that's just what my life is. So if you ask the person like, "Well, why are you doing this? Like what is your goal in life to reach towards? What do you want to get to?"
Mhm.
I honestly believe the majority of people would say, "I don't know."
Yeah, a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a heavy
Not
heavy.
everyone. Yeah,
Mm.
but a lot of people would say that I don't know. And I realized in this last week that I'm one of those people. Like I know my why in life. Like I went through like this transition a couple years ago and I found out that my why in life is that I love people and I want to work with people. People that are like I hate people. I don't agree with them. I love humans. I love
Yeah.
humans from the bottom of my heart because I
Mhm.
know that we are all just like this messiness of beauty and like we all want to be the best versions of ourselves and we all so like loving people is my why.
Mhm.
And doing this job gives me that why. Like I
It's so
get to
good.
love people deeply
Yeah.
in whatever way that I'm doing it in this space. But I don't know what the future looks like for me
Right.
in that space.
You just want to work with people.
Yes. But I want to start to figure out why. And so I actually asked a client this week. I'm reading Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza right now.
Mhm.
And one of the things he talks about is you can bring your future to you,
Right.
but you have to know what the future is because you have to be able to visualize it and put yourself into your future self
Mm.
for it to be able to come to you. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that because I don't know what my future means. I'm like, I don't
What?
know. I don't know what I'm supposed to like. What does my future mean? And so I told or asked one of my clients this week. I gave her and her daughter homework, and I said, "Your homework this week is I want you to go home, and I just want you to put down like one or two things that you want to be able to do.
Mhm.
Right? It doesn't have to be big. It can be just things in the gym, but start to kind of picture your future." And when I got home that night, I texted Taylor and I told him, I'm like, this is something that we need to do. I'm like, I think that you're more in that space. I think you have an idea what you want your future to be like. I don't. And I need to start
Mm.
figuring that out and becoming more clarified in it. And I think that we both need to do it together so that we can kind of create that life together. But that was a question for me that wasn't recent, except for maybe in the book. The book asked the question. And I know that you've asked it to me before. I know that my husband has. I know that Nick has, James. I know that Tara has. But it's one of those things that kind of comes back around because you answer in like way of, oh, I don't really know. And then people are kind of like, okay, well, maybe we should kind of figure that out. But now I'm like, no, I need to. I
Yeah.
need to figure it out so that I have a sense of understanding for what I want to be in my life and what I want to do. And I honestly believe that that will also remove some of the anxiety that I have to have clarity.
Yeah.
So that was my question. And that's my response right now because I feel like that's
This is a rich
weighed
one.
heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's a lot because I didn't even think about how many people don't know. So when I asked my client at first, the first question I asked her was, like, do you believe that you can get to your goal? And
Mhm.
her response was no. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, so that's step one. We need to start believing. But how can we believe if you don't even know what that version of you looks like? So how like what if you were to look at future you and this goal version of you that you want to get to? What like who is she? What does she do? What does she eat? What are some things that she enjoys doing on her off time? And that was overwhelming for her because she realized she wasn't sure. She had no idea the things that she wanted to do. And so that's why we broke it off a little bit more and just said, what are two things that you want to be able to get to? And
Mhm.
we're starting there. But in asking her that question, I then asked myself that question and I was like, what do I want? Like, if I'm going to be asking other people this question, I need to be able to answer this question
Yeah.
so that I can help people clarify what it is that they want to get to. Because
Yeah.
training people and asking them, do you believe in yourself? And having them say no is heartbreaking because
Mm.
you want them to believe in themselves. But then I also realized, do I believe in myself?
Mhm.
No. Like, at what
Yeah.
point am I missing a puzzle piece of if I want so and so, one of my clients or one of my friends to be able to get
Yeah.
to a point of whatever this goal is for them and to believe in themselves to get there,
Yeah.
and I don't even believe in myself, how can I pass along that love and that energy and that frequency
Mhm.
to help them get there?
Listen, if you're trying to lose weight, but you're just frustrated because you just can't seem to see any results, we would love to help you out. Now, we've been helping thousands of our athletes over the course of a decade by crafting personalized programs that are not only sustainable but also effective. Now, if you're ready to transform your health, click on the show notes below, book a call with one of our coaches. We'd love to help you out. Now back to the show. Peace.
Thank you for sharing that. Guys, if you like this episode, we did another episode on is 20 minutes enough for me to get fit? I'll see you guys later. Peace.